Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. No, I'm not Rachel. I am Ryan Cam. I am one half of the Hidden Gems podcast. And today we're coming back to you with another episode where we recommend stuff on streaming services that normally wouldn't pop up in your feed, but we encourage you to dig a little deeper to try and find something new that you probably wouldn't have gone out of your way to find unless you heard about it through the grapevine, as Creedence Clearwater Revival once said.
That's
Like I
right.
said, my name is Ryan Cam. I am a YouTube movie critic, certainly not certified by Rotten Tomatoes, though that is the dream. And I'm joined by Rachel. Rachel, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, just hanging in there.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little sad this morning. The announcement about the Regal theaters really bummed me out. So it's a sad day in the movie world, but we'll get through it somehow, some way. At
Yeah,
least we
it's like the old adage said: if a tree falls in the woods and no one is around to hear it, does it truly make a sound? And I don't really think a ton of people were itching to go to the theaters right now because I don't think the coronavirus is as bad as bad now as it was like in the earlier months. But it's still out there and it's still a threat, and so it's going to take a
yeah.
while for people to get to not get adjusted, but like Rachel, help me out here. Like
Yeah.
try and
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever have the same normal that we had before. I think that the studios are hoping for that for somehow. They keep delaying things, hoping that there's going to be that same payday that they had before. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I don't know if we'll. I, I don't see another $1 billion movie for a long time. I mean, I think some started to bounce back in China, I guess, but I don't know. I'm really pretty skeptical at this point. But I don't know. I think at a certain point, people have to look at the bigger picture, and that keeping the theaters in operation is better for the studios in the long term than if they're thinking about the short term gain of these particular movies. But nevertheless, that's what they've decided to do, and so they were kind of Regal was left with no real choice. I mean, uh, so the whole thing is just it's a mess, and it's very discouraging and frustrating, and it's so frustrating to feel like this thing that I love is being taken away, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to sit and watch.
but I have
But
a feeling it'll come back. Like I call me an optimist, call me whatever you like, but I have a good feeling about it. Like it'll come back.
yeah, at least we have the streaming services to help us in the meantime. This was one of my favorites. Is we did a follow up episode today. We've done now this is our second one, and I just really enjoy because I think it gets me out of my comfort zone watching recommendations from you. Hopefully the same, maybe a little bit with you with things that I've recommended. And so we go through the different episodes, and we watch one that we haven't seen. It was recommended by each other. And I don't know, I think it's a really fun experience.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking on my end because I tend to recommend darker stuff depending on my mood that day. And so
Mm-hmm.
whenever these follow-ups come along, and especially in the case of this episode, when you send me my list and I'm like, I don't think she's going to make it out of this alive. But judging from the sound of it, you managed to pull through, so I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But
But
in all seriousness, though, I do get a little like, I do get a little nervous sometimes recommending certain things because I think, oh, this will be something that I would like, but I'm not sure if like the people listening might like it. But I guess I resign myself to I might like one thing, but it's like it's all subjective. So I just keep that in mind, and I tend to be at ease.
yeah. Well, and I think that even if I don't care for something, which I liked all the ones I watched today, even if I don't care for something, usually I can see okay why it was recommended or why you liked it. And that's a helpful thing, I think, to see what our friends like and to get a little bit of a, even if we don't particularly love it, we get to kind of know our friends better, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, the two of us, we're like the furthest things from gatekeepers. We're like people are like, unless you like this thing, you're not a real fan, or some dumb crap like that. Like, no, we're both very understanding in the regard of, if you don't like something, that's totally fine. That's
Yeah.
completely up to you. All movies are subjective. Some people like the MCU, other people hate it. Some people like the DCU, other people hate it. It's just, it's literally like the two movie
Yeah.
theory. Like, somebody watching a movie will interpret one thing and another person will interpret another. And that's kind of what makes this whole thing fun.
Yeah, we're like the maybe the X-Men of just sort of like that middle ground of in between, right?
Right.
So yeah, well, let's get started. What was the first one that you watched that I recommended?
So the first one I watched from you was from Amazon Prime, and it was The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. This was from 2008. It starred Henry
Yes.
Winkler, and it was honestly a lot of fun. And I think it's like an unwritten law that somewhere that you cannot hate the Fonz, because like the Fonz is just such a cool dude. Like, he's the person that we all should aspire to be, at least in terms of attitude. And Henry Winkler is my favorite part of this movie. He's so nice and he's so cool with literally everything that's going on, because the entire movie was just about this woman trying to put this Christmas stuff together without it completely falling apart. And I've seen a few movies with that same premise, but the difference with The Most Wonderful Time of the Year is that I think it was very well acted. I liked the main woman. Her name escapes me at the minute, but I thought she was really cool. Her love interest was also a lot of fun. He had all the one-liners, and he had one of the most satisfying movie scenes that I've seen in a very long time, where the two are trying to get this motorbike from this small town toy shop run by this guy named Chet. I think it's another unwritten law that dudes named Chet are like the most unlikable people on the planet. And he refuses to sell him the bike. So the guy's like, "Step out in the alley. Let's take this outside." And I'm like, "A Hallmark movie having a fight? What? You don't say." And so then there's this shtick, and then the love interest takes off his shoes. He does a little bow thing, and then Chet's like, "Oh, is that some martial arts thing?" And he does a mocking like little curtsy thing, and the love interest grabs a trash can and smacks Chet in the face with a trash can. I'm not a violent
This is
person.
2008 Hallmark, I will say. So it's kind of a the way back in the day. So you would
I'm
get
not
this
a
now.
violent person, but when that garbage can hit Chet, I let out an audible "Yes! Oh my God!" And then he did, and then at the end he did the
Yeah.
thing, which just was that was the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah, I really enjoy this one. I think Brooke Burns is good as this like sweet but sort of she's lost her way. This single mom who's dating this bad man of business, such a bad man of business, and he basically he puts the ring on her finger before she even says yes, and you're just like, what is going on? And yeah, and Warren Christie as this guy who's sort of the bohemian kind of a thing, and he's fun. I like when he goes on top of the roof for the little boy and to be the reindeer. That's really cute. And yeah, and Henry Winkler, he's so good. I love him as sort of this busybody matchmaking uncle. A lot of times it's the aunt, but this time it's the uncle, which I enjoy very much. And it's just I think it's a fun movie.
yeah, and even though we're in October, it got me in the Christmas spirit.
Good.
It's like we're less than 2 months, or not less than 2 months away from that. So
Yeah.
it got me in the mood for that.
Over at Hallmarkies podcast, we started officially our 2020 Christmas coverage season this week with our Lifetime holiday preview show and our interview with Amy Winter, head of programming for Lifetime. So that was pretty exciting for us over there. So if you want more Christmas coverage, make sure to check out over there. Well,
Yeah, because those 5.25 million Christmas movies are not going to review
that's right.
themselves. In the
I know
words of
I'm the only one in media. I feel like that's like overwhelmed by new content right now.
yeah, it's like in the words of the wise philosopher Mike Rowe, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
That's right. That's right. So very good. Well, so my first choice for your reviews fits in really well with Halloween coming up, and it was the Night of the Living Dead, the classic. This you recommended in last week's Canopy episode, and so it's a new recommendation. And I wanted to see this for quite some time, but you know me and horror movies, not all that comfortable. But I don't mind zombie movies as much. I love Anna and the Apocalypse, for instance, which you can see on my 2010's horror video that I made as part of Movie Nerds Club this last weekend. We both did. That was fun. And so I had Anna and the Apocalypse on there, and I like Warm Bodies, and I even like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which nobody else liked, but I thought was fun. And so here we have the king of them all the zombie movies, Night of the Living Dead, and I really enjoyed it. I especially loved the black and white. I thought it was so pretty. I love the black and white photography, and I thought it just gave everything kind of a stark, gritty feel to it, and there's definitely some really creepy moments, like starting from the very top when I think it's Jerry is his name, I think, and
Yeah.
he's like, why are he's like, why are you praying, Barbara? Stop doing that, Barbara. And just the way he's doing that was very creepy, and I'm like, oh, here we go. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was fun.
I'm honestly shocked because when I recommended it, I was thinking, there's no way she's going to pick Night of the Living Dead. And it turns out you did, and you actually liked it. I
I
am
did.
very, very pleasantly surprised. And
Yes.
it's definitely not as hardcore as other zombie movies that would come out in the later decades. Certainly not the most hardcore zombie movie George A. Romero would ever make. Like, watch Dawn of the Dead if you want some more of that. But
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was in black and white, it made it more palatable because you're not seeing like the blood and I mean, it's just different than here the people are eating bones and stuff like, and if that was in black and white, I mean if that was in color, I think it would be more traumatic. And so being in black and white, it's more sort of just interesting.
yeah, and the blood used in that movie was chocolate syrup. So for all of you viewers who might want to watch Night of the Living Dead and maybe worry about blood, just keep telling yourself it's chocolate syrup, and you'll be fine.
There you go. Yeah, and it was. I mean, and you can tell it was very low budget and creative, and so yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it was like the Paranormal Activity of its day. It was made on like a shoestring budget, and
Hmm.
it just made nothing but profit, like 325% of its production budget back. I may be off on those
Yeah,
figures.
and I think he remade it in color, and it was people didn't give it very good reviews.
I'm not sure about that. I think I know he made Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, which were released in the subsequent decades, but I think I'll have to check later because I don't want to say you're wrong, but it just if my Romero history is correct, I just got to make sure about that.
Hmm. Yeah.
But Romero would definitely expand on those ideas in Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead.
Mm. So, what is your next pick?
So my next pick was from Disney Plus, and it was a documentary, Howard, about the life of Howard Ashman. And it's about 90 minutes. And throughout the entire thing, I said to myself, wait a minute, Howard Ashman created that? Because I had no idea. A, he created Little Shop of Horrors, one of my all-time favorite musicals. Two, that he had a hand in both Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, as well as Aladdin. And D, he was just generally a beloved human being from both his colleagues and his friends. This movie felt like a love letter to the guy. Like he was just genuinely just a he was just a good person. Like they make a point around the last years of his life that he looked like he was having trouble. That's because IRL he was diagnosed with AIDS. But I don't, if my memory serves me right, he never let on, and he kind of put up barriers around
Mhm.
himself, which
It
was
wasn't
very.
until I think that maybe that last year or something like that, yeah.
Oh well,
Yeah.
in that case, that's just very sad that he wasn't able to open up to the people that loved
Yeah.
him so much.
Because
But
it was such a climate with AIDS, back then that it was such a different time.
all I can say is that I'm just glad that he had a hand in so many of the movies that I watched growing up, and I'll look at them completely different now because of the man who was behind it. Because just I can remember Little Shop of Horrors like shot for shot. I saw it so many times, especially because my high school did a production of it in my sophomore year. I missed the cut of getting in there, which was very sad. But they were all very capable people. So and the show is a lot of fun. And I would pay good money to be a fly on the wall when he was writing the dentist song for the first time. Like, you'll be a dentist. You have a talent for causing things pain. And Steve Martin punches a guy or somebody. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so
Yeah.
much fun.
So good. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, he was an incredible human. I really admire him in so many ways. And of course, Little Mermaid's one of my favorite movies ever. And so he actually got a story credit, which for a lyricist is not always the case. And so he was very intimately involved with the story, and he was known to, dress up as the characters and you really give the animators an idea of kind of what he had in mind. And I just loved seeing that. It was really cool. And also the whole behind the scenes of Beauty and the Beast, where you could see Angela Lansbury and Jerry Orbach singing, was amazing. It was worth watching the documentary just for that alone, as a huge Beauty and the Beast fan. It was
Yeah,
so
and
cool.
seeing the dude play Gaston and seeing
Yeah.
there she goes, she is so peculiar. The song escapes me at
Yeah.
the minute, but seeing him sing it, one of my favorite Disney
Yeah.
villains, I was just like, wow, like we need more documentaries
Right.
like this. Just show
Yeah.
off archival footage. If Apollo 11, the people behind Apollo 11 can do it, like Disney needs to do it.
That's
And
right.
while we're at it, let's make like a Hans Zimmer and a John Williams style like documentary, based around their careers. They've got more than enough material to cover, I'd say.
Hmm. Yeah, it was really cool. I agree. So, all right. Well, my next pick is also a documentary. This is from our one of our HBO Max episodes, and it is Ali and Cavett, Tale of the Tapes. And this is about all the time that Muhammad Ali was on Dick Cavett's show. And I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I love these kinds of documentaries. But I do think that the movie was a little judgy of Muhammad Ali, particularly when they were talking about him and his refusal to participate in the draft and in the war. I felt like all the commentators were, sort of questioning his motives, and was he being sort of brainwashed by Elijah Muhammad, and kind of the thing that, I don't know, I felt like the movie was a little hard on him, whereas opposed to, I felt like maybe they should have had one or two people kind of talking about maybe that he was really trying to make a stand and being brave, or you know what I mean, just like an alternate opinion on that. I thought that was a little strange, and I think they wandered away from the main thesis of the program a bit. That you'd go kind of long stretches where they weren't really talking about the show or him on the show. And so I think I could have even had more about the show, and maybe the effects of the show, the impacts of the show, all of that kind of thing. But nevertheless, I still enjoyed it. I still think it's interesting, and I still learned some things about Ali and that time and everything. So, yeah, it was interesting.
I can see that those are definitely valid criticisms. Uh, I think that I believe HBO did a documentary talking about Muhammad Ali's like fight with the draft. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I do see what you're saying in that they do kind of wander away from the Cavett element at times.
Mm-hmm.
I recommended it because I'm a huge Dick Cavett fan, and I think the documentary as a whole did a good job of capturing the relationship between the
Yeah,
two, and how Ali, when he was on there, he was like almost a completely different person.
yeah.
But I do see what you're saying. You do bring up some good points.
Yeah, and overall, I enjoyed it, and I think it's definitely worth a watch, and I think people will learn something. So yeah, what do you have next?
So my next choice is from Netflix, and it is Howard's End. This was from one of our Netflix episodes, and this was, I think, 1992. Yes, 1992, and it was from, I believe, the production company Mercer Ivory. And
Merchant.
oh, thank you, Merchant Ivory. And I have no knowledge of like the book or anything that this movie is based off of, so I went into this one completely blind, minus your recommendation for it, of course. And I walked out of this like, wow, that was actually really good. It's first of all, the movie looks absolutely gorgeous. You know, for 1992, they captured the time period of this movie like just completely perfect. Like there's not an instance where I'm like, oh, that was clearly taken off a back lot. Like, no, I was in England with these people, and so give props to that. My favorite part of the movie was Anthony Hopkins, and I'm a big Anthony Hopkins fan. This was around the time where he had just won his Oscar for Silence of the Lambs, and so this was like peak Anthony Hopkins right here. He was clicking on all cylinders. Emma Thompson is in this. She's always excellent, no matter what she is in. Vanessa Redgrave, who I'm not 100% sure of any of the movies that she's been a part of. I'm sure she's been in stuff that I've seen, but she was really good here as well. And I hope I'm not too out of bounds with this comparison, but the movie kind of reminded me of seeing Downton Abbey, in that
Mm.
it's like about a family living in England and they have their own little conflicts and stuff on the side. It was intriguing and I was compelled throughout, but I was picking up Downton Abbey vibes, and I hope I'm not too out of bounds with that comparison because it was I just thought the two were not like copying off of each other, but like similar.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of E.M. Forster kind of themes in Downton Abbey. It's right around the same time period as they're right around the same time period that they were writing about, and you can definitely see a similar kind of theme there. I would say that, yeah, the Downton Abbey, at least at the beginning, is a little bit more fluffy and then than Howard's End, but then it gets pretty serious towards the fourth season, so I can see that. And but yeah, I think the thing, I love the book, Howard's End, and I think what it does that I think so impressive in this adaptation is I think that it managed to create such a rich group of characters that I genuinely care about. that it's easy to write a story where I care about the lead protagonist or maybe one or two other characters. In this case, there's 9, 10 characters that I'm invested in within this story. I mean, you look at someone like Leonard Bast, who is this kind of minor character, and yet he has a full story that you become invested in, which I think is really impressive. And it also manages to say something about class and about, because the Emma Thompson, Helena Bonham Carter characters, they think that they're sort of above class, that they are somehow better than all of this, and in reality, they're not. They're just as constrained by their sort of educated class as anybody else. And I think that the Anthony Hopkins character, I think that you should hate him, but I don't know if it's his performance or if it's just the writing or what it is, but I don't hate him. I understand him. He's doing in his world what is right for him. He's trying to, in his mind, we're all the heroes of our own stories, but he in his mind, he's doing what is right. And when he breaks down over what has happened to his son, and it's quite devastating. And I don't know, I think in just the whole thing coming full circle, that they end up, that she was going to give Howard's End to Margaret, and in the end they end up getting Howard's End, and the whole thing, it's very poetic, and I just love it. I love every character. It is beautiful, as you said, incredibly well acted. And I think they actually did a new version, which I also enjoyed last year with shoot, what's her name? Peggy Carter. I can't think of her name all of a sudden.
Oh,
Haley Atwell. Yeah.
thank you, Haley Atwell.
Haley Atwell. They did a new version with Haley Atwell that I also enjoyed. I just love the story, and I think this is very well told, and the acting is so good.
Yeah, so that I was taken aback by how much I enjoyed this one.
Oh, I'm so glad. So glad. And at least I don't think it's a boring period piece. I don't know. I feel like it clips along pretty well.
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins's charisma with the role really did carry the whole thing, at least for me. And
Yeah.
maybe that's because I'm just a Hopkins guy, but at the same time,
he's so good.
Every scene he was in, I was just like, I wonder what this guy's up to today.
Yeah. No, he's great. He's really, really, really good in the movie. And again, he takes a character that really should be kind of a one-note, unlikable, greedy capitalist, and he gives him, you understand him, I think, pretty well by the end of it. My next choice is from the Hoopla episode, and I watched Copland. This is from James Mangold. This is your recommendation, Sylvester Stallone. And I remember when this movie came out, that I just remember people talking about, oh, he'd gained some weight for the part. This was a real stretch for him as far as his acting. And I think you can definitely feel it. Like, he seems like such a shy, insecure character. And he's played those characters before. Like, honestly, Rocky is a pretty shy character, at least in the first one, and kind of insecure and whatever. And so this was interesting for him to kind of go back to that, I thought. And I really thought it was a well done film. I felt like I didn't quite know where it was going. I felt like script was pretty unpredictable for this kind of story as far as what was going to happen. So you have you have this town in New Jersey where a bunch of the cops in New York live. And he's Sylvester Stallone. It plays the sheriff of this town, but he's kind of looked down on because he's not like a big city cop. And there becomes kind of a scandal, organized crime kind of scandal, sort of. And I liked it. I thought it was a pretty engaging, unpredictable, well acted story in it. So
Yeah, this is definitely James Mangold I don't want to say like the infant stage, but like in like the beginning stages of his career, and he would go on to direct, Walk the Line and The Wolverine, and then would just absolutely explode in the 2010s with Logan and Ford v Ferrari, which are just two of the best movies of that entire decade.
Mhm.
So this is definitely him like honing his style and like building up to something even bigger. And for like a movie close to his debut, for him to get access to Stallone, Harvey Keitel, Robert De Niro, and just so many like big or like just big actors
Yeah.
at that time, it must have been like it must have been a big sign of trust for the studio to be like, all right, you got all of these big players, don't let our trust be violated or something like that.
Yeah, I mean there is a stacked cast, as you said. Sylvester Stallone, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and there are some people that I was surprised. I kind of wondered if maybe some of their performance went on the cutting room floor, because someone like Janine Garofalo, is just in like two scenes. Like, oh, there she is. Um, but Robert Patrick from Terminator, he's in here. Yeah, so it's a great cast, and you definitely feel for Stallone's character's sort of moral dilemma of kind of what does he do, these people that he's admired all his life, but what is he going to do when he finds out more information? And they kind of treat him like he's an idiot and a simpleton. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is your next pick?
So my next pick was from HBO Max, and it was Far and Away. This was you had recommended on the most recent HBO Max episode that we did. This was directed by Ron Howard. It starred Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and I was actually surprised at how much I did enjoy this movie. It felt like it felt like Tom Cruise definitely like taking a risk around this time, because around the late 80s and the early 90s he was known for movies like Days of Thunder and Top Gun and these bigger, action fueled movies, and this isn't one of those movies. It's a period piece, and it's a very difficult story and a more nuanced story, and I think that Tom Cruise actually managed to pull it off. He had really good chemistry with Nicole Kidman, and those two were like this back in the late 80s and early 90s. Like
Yeah, and
they were
literally they were husband and wife. So yeah.
they were like two hands, like they were completely inseparable. And Ron Howard, despite the fact that the 2010s was not his best decade, I still remain a fan of his, and most of the movies that he has directed, I've I've loved his directing style, and and that is definitely prevalent in this movie. And so yeah, this is definitely something that I didn't anticipate I would like all that much, and it turned out to be just quite good.
Wasn't that land rush sequence pretty impressive?
Yeah, that was actually
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. I think that's the highlight of the film. It's pretty long, and just this very spectacle sequence where they're all trying to claim their lands, and it's very impressive.
I don't know if you've seen the Grapes of Wrath with Henry Fonda, but it
Hmm.
reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I know that like the Depression and the potato famine were like two completely separate things, but in terms of like in the Grapes of Wrath, Tom Joad and his family have to go to California to find new opportunities. But in Far and Away, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman have to pack up and leave Ireland due to the potato famine to find new opportunity in America. So
Hmm.
different disasters, but similar paths for opportunity, if you
Yeah.
want to call it that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you think how hard it is to film a land rush scene like that and not have it just be dust, dust, dust everywhere. coming up, and so they had to control all of that and still make it visible and still make it and still make it entertaining. You could see what was all happening, so the sense of scope and everything is pretty impressive that they were able to do. So I think it's underrated.
It's not exactly like they had Adobe After Effects back then. So
Right.
they messed up. They had to start all over again.
That's right. That's right. So my next pick is from our Hulu week, and I watched the pilot for Josh and Drake series, and I for the most part enjoyed it. Definitely love the sort of spirit of family and the relationship between the two brothers, and I thought it was very sweet. And there definitely are some laughs, and they go for it, which I appreciated. The Josh character was a little much for me sometimes. I was just like, oh wow, this guy could get on my nerves. But I still thought that the overall message of these two brothers, especially the way that Drake came to help his brother in the end, was very sweet. And I think especially if you had a mixed family and you were trying to kind of get everyone to get along, this would be a great show to watch and watch together.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, Josh actually does get he does mellow out as the seasons go on. Like
Mm-hmm.
he lost a lot of weight during the show's run, and when he loses the weight, it's like he loses like all of the stuff where he's obsessed with Oprah, and he's hugging people and all that. Like he doesn't stray too far away from that, but definitely the more annoying parts are like rounded off, and he
Yeah.
becomes a far better package by like season 3 or 4. Like season 1 and 2 are good, but season 3 and season 4, it's like hook that directly into my veins. Like that's one of my favorite childhood shows.
Yeah, yeah. I can see why. I can see why. And yeah, the little girl, she's the villain of the episode.
Megan.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's played by Miranda Cosgrove, who would eventually voice one of the daughters in the Despicable Me movies. I think the
Oh
old
yeah.
one. And she actually got off her own. She got her own spin-off show. I know words. Called iCarly,
Oh.
which is definitely a step down, I'd say, but it's still a lot of fun. It's
Uh-huh.
from the
I've
same
heard of
creative
iCarly.
team. It's from the same creative team, so it's got the same writing pretty
Yeah.
much.
You definitely had that sort of physical comedy that you see in Disney Channel series, things like Jessie, or sort of shows like that, or Hannah Montana, kind of that physical comedy. But I enjoy that. I don't mind it at all, and I think overall the message of family was really nice. So I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
around the early 2000s, it was like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney Channel were like, oh, reality TV shows are the new flavor of ice cream. We got to get into some of that. And so Nickelodeon, at least in terms of them, Nickelodeon created like Drake and Josh and Zoe 101 and Victoria Justice and I think Amanda Bynes had a show at one time. And so
Yeah.
they went all out on the reality shows, to the point where nowadays when you say Nickelodeon to somebody, they'll be like, oh, the SpongeBob channel, because they play nothing but SpongeBob reruns all night long.
Yeah.
Like Nick at Night doesn't really even exist all that much anymore. Sad,
I
but
know,
that's
which
another
is sad.
story. That's another story for another time.
All right. What is your last pick?
So my last pick was from our Canopy episode last week, and it was Leave No Trace. I finally saw Leave No
Oh,
Trace,
yeah.
and it was really good. I
Yes.
it's Ben Foster in this movie gave me serious like a run for my money in terms of favorite performance of his. I think it's a slight edge still to Hell or High Water, but
Hmm.
it's like 1A and 1B. Like Leave No Trace, he is excellent in the movie. The whole
Yeah.
conceit of the movie is that he's clearly going through post-traumatic stress disorder, but he also is trying to keep that at bay while also trying to provide for his daughter in the best way that he knows how. And to the outside world, he looks like a complete loon bag, like a few fries short of a Happy Meal. But it kind of reminded me of like Jodie Foster in Little Man Tate. Like, he doesn't have much, but what he does provide, he provides only for his daughter and does it to the best of his ability. And I know that that's a very weird comparison, but that's the comparison I
Yeah.
made. So there it is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful looking movie. It's got it's I can't remember the little girl's name, but she was also really good.
Thomason McKenzie.
Thank you. She
Yeah.
was really good in this as well, and I hope, along with, pardon me, I hope with Elsie Fisher that they become like the next like big things. Elsie
Yeah.
Fisher was the little girl from 8th grade, so I
Yeah, I
hope
think
those two.
so. If you've seen Jojo Rabbit, Thomas McKenzie's also in that. She's wonderful in that.
She
She just
is
has
excellent.
such a warmth and to her performances. I think she is going to be a big star. And I think what this movie does so well is it shows that you can still love people in your life and not follow their path and not embrace their life. And, just because you've chosen as a coming of age story, which it really is, it's actually a coming of age story. That, part of growing up is sort of realizing that you can still love your parents, but you don't have to do everything like them. You can still admire them, but you can make your own path. And I think it shows that so well. And I just love the ending so much. Whenever I watch the ending, I'm just like, yes, you did it. You were so brave. That's so hard to do. And for her to do that and is really just so great. And, when she says, what's wrong with you is not what's wrong with me. It's not the same thing. And it's like said in love, but it's true, and that it's hard for him to hear that, but she needs to say it. So I love that, and I hope that when I watch it, I'm like, oh, I hope everything turns out okay for her. Even though she's a fictional character, I'm invested. I'm like, oh, everything's okay. I hope everything turns out all right. Like she
And
has
it
those.
does, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. And when they leave the tree farm, I don't know, I just feel so sad for her. And she's finally starting to feel kind of uh, accepted and like there's a home, and then all of a sudden uprooted again. And so yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I just think it's a really, really good film. And so many of those off the grid movies don't work for me because they expect us to sort of aggrandize this person as being sort of heroic and this free thinker kind of a thing. And that's not what they do here at all with his character. He's not lambasted or anything like that, but he's not put up as some kind of free thinker, which
Like,
I really appreciated.
he's a troubled man, but he does the best that he can,
Yeah.
and in that way, I sympathized with him.
Yeah. Yeah. You sympathize with them, but you're not asked to kind of, this is a fresh way of thinking that I should try to emulate or something like that. Like you get with Captain Fantastic or with the Glass Castle, which
I was going to say insert random picture of Glass Castle here
I
for
hate
no
the Glass
reason at all.
I hate the Glass Castle so much. If you want to
I'm
watch
a
my rant, over 1,000 views on my rant on Glass Castle.
I'm a free thinker. Well, hold on a second while I rob this hospital.
Yeah, that's right. This is the worst. Why I kill my children practically. All right. Well, the last pick is from the one of our Amazon episodes, and it is The Lincoln Lawyer. And this is a movie I'd heard about, but I hadn't gotten around to seeing it. And it's about Matthew McConaughey's character is this fast talking, suave, slick lawyer, and he gets driven around in this Lincoln all day, going from not patient, client to client and situation to situation, and he manages to talk his way out of most everything. And he's honest though. He's not a devious lawyer like you sometimes get. He's honest, but he's just very good at his job. And I thought this was really good. I really liked it. I thought it was very well executed with good performances, and uh, I I don't know. I just really enjoyed the ride of this whole movie. I thought it was very entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. This was like the beginning of the McConaissance. Like this
Mm-hmm.
was Matthew McConaughey finally breaking out of, not that there's anything wrong with that, the rom-com phase of his
Mm.
career. And he was like a year after this, he would star in this movie called Mud, which is really good.
Yeah, it's so
And then
good.
he would be in True Detective season one, and then after that, he was in Interstellar, which is my favorite McConaughey performance. And then he still is acting on a consistent basis to this day, and just wrote a book that I am very itching to read because I'm sure that would have some great Texas stories, man. All right, all right.
Yeah, listen to the audiobook. I think it would be good. But yeah, I mean, I felt like it was pretty unpredictable for this kind of story, and I didn't quite know where the case was going and what was going to happen as far as Ryan Phillippe's character. And I don't know, it was just the script was very tight, very well done, very well executed, and I guess based on a book, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done and entertaining. So yeah, so it was a good choice. So there we go. That was fun. I really enjoyed doing these follow-ups of recommendations from you, and hopefully you enjoyed watching my 5 recommendations.
I say, yes, I did. I enjoyed all of them, first and foremost, but I present this to the room. I say the next follow up episode we do is in 2021. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Uh, yes, because watching 5 movies in a week is not going to be possible in the next 2 months, 3 months.
You're going to
So
be a busy woman these next
yes.
couple months.
I
Not to
mean, it's going to
mention,
be hard enough just to get this out every week, but we're going to do our best. And I'm excited about it. And so, yeah, let us know what you think. If you have seen any of these films, what you think of them. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And Ryan, where can people find you?
they can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. They can also find me on my YouTube channel, Ryan Cam's Movie Reviews. It'll be linked in the description. Scary Mania is running wild on my channel. Today is a Monday when we're recording this, which means my episode for 1931's Frankenstein has just dropped. And in the coming days, I'll be talking about The Mummy from the original Universal's The Mummy, and then I'll be getting to some movies from the 1940s, specifically The Wolfman, The Mummy's Hand, and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. And then after that, I'll be diving into the B movies of the 50s, talking about Godzilla and The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So a bunch of, lack of a better term, spooky fun gonna be talking about over on my channel. And of course, the AFI project is still going down. I watched a Streetcar Named Desire recently, so I'm going to start writing my notes for that. Also for movies like Intolerance and Lord of the Rings and MASH and The Deer Hunter and Taxi Driver, and just a lot of great stuff coming onto the channel. So if you haven't subscribed, like, now's as good a time as ever because y'all will be on the ground floor.
Yes, subscribe, please. You'll love it. So yeah, and make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that so much. And make sure you're following me all over social media, Rachel's Reviews, and also make sure you're following the Hallmarkies podcast. Like I said, we're starting our Christmas season this week, so definitely don't want to miss out on anything. We're gonna have interviews. We're gonna have lots of great content over there. We're busy planning, busy. So check that out. And thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye, everyone.